What's going on, guys? We are live on the Sootch channel. It has been a while. We do a lot of lives over on our Sensible Prepper channel, but today we really felt like it was important to get this information out. We have Robbie Wheaton with us from Wheaton Arms, Class 3 dealer, SOT, has Wheaton Arms, custom gun works, been a gunsmith for over 20 years, and we really appreciate Robbie being here. One of the things, and this is big, and guys, down in the below in the description, I have a link going straight to his channel where he did a live on the ATF webinar over the pistol brace, stabilizing pistol braces.
Yep.
It's very informative, and that's really what we're here about.
Well, it's one of the big things that I really wanted. There's so much misinformation out there right now about what you can do, what you can't do, and everybody has an opinion. So instead of looking at everyone's opinion, I really wanted to put out the information directly from the ATF. We were this morning with them from 10 o'clock to 11:30, and I live streamed the entire thing. So the link's down in the description. You can click on that. You can watch the entire live webinar. About half of it or a little more was just Q&A. They went over their PDF bullet points, the video was just Q&A.
I thought the Q&A was really good too. I think they really got some good questions.
Yeah, I think they answered a lot of people's questions, a lot of concerns that people have. And then there was still some stuff that was left, very gray and very vague that they didn't cover detail with enough detail, I felt. But that video is down below in the description, so you can check it out.
And also the actual form, the PDF form from the ATF website, there's a link down below in the description if you want to go and read the text. And there's also frequently asked questions. They have a form for that as well. So there's a lot of information out there. And guys, a lot of people have really been asking me, why haven't you done a stabilizing brace? Why? Because we didn't know.
That's right.
And Robbie and I sat down one time and we're going to figure it out. This is when they had the original list. And I'm going to tell you what, after a while, we just looked at it and said, this is crazy. We can't figure this out. So this has really been kind of enlightening. And there are some things, honestly, that I was a little bit glad about. I think, they cleared up some things that I was really worried about.
For sure.
And so, and it was pretty concise, I think. Overall, now there were some questions for sure.
Yeah.
Hold on. I'm not having any sound hardly. Like it's cutting in and out.
Huh.
Like I can barely hear you.
Are people saying something on the thing?
Yeah, they're saying they can't hear it.
Is it just me?
Is it audio with both of us or just we're
Hold
done?
on.
Is it just me?
Hold on.
Sorry, guys.
Y'all are both.
Okay.
I can't hear anything y'all are saying now.
Yeah, you can't hear?
Yeah.
No here? I need to know because I'm going to take this off.
Hold on. I'm making sure because some people are saying they can hear you.
Okay, you guys pipe in the comments if you can hear us, because this is a very important, important.
And make sure that you can hear both of us, not just Don, but me as well.
Okay. They said they can hear
With that. But anyway, guys, we're looking at the webinar. This is the post webinar. We want to talk about some of the issues. A lot of questions that I have, a lot of questions that Robbie had, a lot of questions that you have. Guys, if there's anybody that has a lot to lose with this, I've done a ton of videos with stabilizing braces attached to pistols, and it really impacts me a lot. Yeah. So let's look at some of the things that we learned from this. Now, first off, let's say you have a pistol, AR pistol, Scorpion, whatever. You got some kind of pistol. What are the options?
Well, so you've got several different options. Number one of the biggest things that I want to cover before we even jump into that is if you own a pistol, as of today, it needs to be in your possession. If it's at your gunsmith, you need to go pick it up. If it's at a pawnbroker, you need to go pick it up.
But isn't today too late? I think today is when it actually started.
Today is when they signed everything. So it's after today. But anything that you own, you have to have in your possession as of today. So if you bought a pistol and you're in one of the states that has a 3-day waiting period, or you're having to wait to be able to pick it up, unless you're able to pick it up today, you're not going to be able to pick it up with the brace on it. You can pick it up without the brace, but you're not going to be able to pick it up with the brace.
Okay, well, let's talk first though about
People that have them and
let's
own
say you
them.
got them.
Yep.
What am I going to do? What am I doing? Let's get to that first. I think
So
that's important.
if you have a pistol in your possession right now, you have a few options. Option one, you can register it. Register it as an SBR, non-taxable, so you don't have to pay the $200 tax. They're waiving that for the first 120 days. That's to give you the opportunity to be able to register that firearm as an SBR and put it in the NFA system.
Now, that's a Form 1.
That's a Form 1, correct. Unless your dealer or manufacturer, dealers and manufacturers are registering on Form 2s or Form 3s.
And if you're a dealer or manufacturer, this really isn't to you because
Right.
that gets into a lot
It's a
of stuff.
whole different conversation.
And
there.
you should watch the ATF webinar for sure.
Yep, maybe
So,
a couple of times.
Yeah.
But for individuals, you register it on a Form 1. You're going to have fingerprints, passport photos. You're not going to be able to register it in a trust at this point, because the firearm would have already had to be in your trust prior to today. So you're going to have to register it in your own name. And the downside is if you want to put it in your trust later, you're going to have to pay a $200 tax stamp to transfer it from your own name over into your trust. Another option is you can remove the brace from the firearm and then it's a pistol. Doesn't matter if it has a buffer tube or whatever, take the brace off, it's a pistol, it stays a pistol, doesn't fall under any of the rules, regulations, restrictions, and all of that, which
now,
is
one thing about it. Let's say I have a CZ Scorpion.
right.
I can't have a tube on it.
Correct.
It has to be integral to the functioning of the pistol. So an AR-15 is fine.
Right.
If you have an AK-47 and you've got a buffer tube on it, that's no good. You've got to get rid of it.
Exactly.
So anything that has any kind of extension that is not
necessary for the integral function of the firearm itself has to be removed, or it's considered part of the brace or stock along with that firearm.
And that's anything that comes off the back.
Right.
There were some questions about that.
Yep.
So anything, you just need to remove it and go back to just that.
Just the pistol.
Yeah, just the pistol.
Yep. So option 2 would be to remove the brace or any brace accessory that you have on that firearm. Like Don was saying, if it's an AR-15, the buffer tube is fine. According to the ATF, the webinar, the 6-position buffer tube is fine. Pistol buffer tubes are fine. Rifle buffer tubes are fine. But it cannot have any type of accessory on that, like a neoprene sleeve, a wrap, a snubber that goes on the end. There can't be anything on that buffer tube itself other than the bare stripped buffer tube. I thought it was interesting that they said that it was fine to have the 6-position buffer tube on there.
Right, right.
But what they were saying is if you have the 6-position buffer tube on there and you still have the arm braces that aren't attached to anything or stocks that aren't attached to anything, that it can go to show intent that you intend at some point to install a stock or a brace back on that firearm.
But you can possess the brace.
That's right.
You don't have to you don't have to destroy the brace.
Correct.
You don't have to. In fact, if you have, and this is one of the things they brought up, if you have one AR pistol or any one pistol and you have a brace, it's kind of tricky. But if you have rifles and other things, that brace is not necessarily connected.
For that one firearm. It can be put on any of your other firearms that you have. And that was what they were saying, that you really, what they're looking at is intent. If someone has just one firearm, just one brace, just one upper, what their intent is with that. Are they intending on putting that buffer tube back on, or that brace back on there? Are they intending on leaving that brace off? Now, one of the things that was interesting is this ruling in no way, shape, or form has any impact whatsoever on the legality of the brace itself. Right. You can still go to any gun store, any gun shop, online, whatever, buy the braces and have them shipped to your house. The only issue is the installation of that on a handgun or a pistol itself. If you install it on your pistol now, you've violated the NFTR. I don't remember the exact reg.
You might as well put a stock on it.
Right. And that was one of the things they were talking about is it's the same federal law that governing the SBRs. So if you put a brace on it, you fall under the same NFA regulations as installing a stock.
Now, one thing is if you do register it, if you do, sending it in, doesn't mean you have to leave the brace. You can
That's right.
then put a stock on it
Because
it is
you-
considered an SBR.
Absolutely. Once you register it, that firearm is registered as an SBR. It is not registered as a pistol with a brace. So once you get your approved Form 1 back, you can put any buttstock or any kind of rear accessory that you want on that firearm, arm brace, buttstock, folder, whatever, because at that point you have registered that firearm as a short-barreled rifle and it's no longer a pistol.
Now, one thing that was very fascinating to me is typically with your SBRs, you have to engrave your name, address, and all the information.
That's right, because you as the manufacturer filing the Form 1, as a Form 1, you're the manufacturer of that firearm. So when you file your Form 1 to register this SBR or pistol in this case, it's kind of weird. When you register a Form 1 for an SBR, you are the manufacturer, and that firearm has to be engraved with either your name, city, and state, or your trust name, city, and state. That's on one of the blocks in your form. But it's weird. The ATF said this morning that when you register a pistol as an SBR, that it does not have to be engraved. And there were multiple people asked that question. And even I asked the question and referenced, the law as far as engraving the SBR. They sent me a link back, and the link it didn't explain anything, but they sent me a link back, and what they said this morning multiple times was it does not have to be engraved with the name, city, and state. That the manufacturer, the model, and the serial number, and the name, city, and state that actually manufactured the firearm is what they were going to use for the Form 1, and not you as being the manufacturer of it.
Right. So you can when you send in your Form 1, you take pictures right there of the lower. Mm-hmm. You don't have to take a picture of the whole firearm.
Yep.
It's one thing they said. Unless you have one of the 80%ers or something like that. Right. That's where it's things. And that was one of the things. There is a form though that you need to keep with you. Wasn't there what he said?
There is one of the, and I'm guessing that it's just a copy of the Form 1 that you filed. You can print that. They didn't elaborate on what form it was that you had to keep and maintain. But normally when you file a Form 1, you file it, and I always print a copy of the Form 1 that I filed as well and save that for my records until I get the approval form back. And I'm guessing that's what they want you to do is file make a copy of your Form 1 or print a copy of your Form 1 that you submit, and keep that copy of your Form 1 along with that firearm until you get the approval back.
Right. Now, one thing I thought was also interesting is that if you have filed paperwork, you are legal to shoot that gun mm-hmm. as is honestly, with a stock on it even.
They didn't elaborate on that.
They did.
And I wish there was a lot of things that I wish they would have went into more detail about, and that was one of them. Once you file your paperwork, you're good to, the firearm's already assembled, you're good to shoot it in that configuration. I wouldn't advise putting a buttstock on it until you get your Form 1, your approved Form 1 back. And then at that point, you can put whatever you want on it. But I would leave it in the pistol configuration for right now until you get your Form 1 back.
Right. So, there are, and guys, it's just really up to you. Of course, one of the big things they said is put a 16-inch barrel if you have an AR-15.
Sure.
But if you have an AK, there's a lot of guns out there that you're not able to do that.
It's not an easy option to do a barrel swap on it.
Yep. So really the big thing is, honestly, if you're not planning to send in your firearm, just take the brace off mm-hmm. and put it separately. That was one thing they said. It's just that it doesn't need to be in the same drawer.
Right.
In fact, he even said that.
Yes.
Which was kind of funny. You're going to put it in a drawer, but instead of a safe. But they shouldn't be in the same drawer where they're just like ready, accessible just to do it.
It's funny. I guess we know how they're storing their firearms.
They got them in their nightstand. But, and really this pertains, it was funny. They went through not only the importers, dealers. Mm-hmm. Now, if you're a dealer, again, like Robbie said a minute ago, if you have a gun, maybe you're having a trigger job done or something, you're not in possession of that gun. Whoever is in possession of this gun at this point mm-hmm. is the possessor.
Right.
So for you to come, you'll have to actually have the brace removed or do whatever. And I don't know that let's say that if you had one of my guns,
right,
and you were doing some work on it, and so I come to you now or mm-hmm. come to you and I say, hey, I want to get that gun back. And you said, okay, but I have to take the brace off,
right,
or we have to do a Form 1.
Well, at that point, from from my understanding with it this morning, I would have to remove the brace and convert it into a pistol, a true pistol, to be able to give it back to you. And I can give you your pistol back and your brace, and I can give you all your stuff back, but it has to be converted into a pistol. Now, with you not being in possession of that firearm at that point, somebody else is in possession of it, a dealer or pawnbroker or whatever. You're going to have to pay the $200 tax stamp to register that one.
That's what I was going to go with.
Yep.
Yeah. So if you're not in possession of it right now, you're not under the grace period.
Correct. That's right. And one of the interesting things that that came out of it this morning are people that are in the military. So you're in the military, you're deployed, you're overseas, and you're not going to be home by May the 31st, which is the last day that you can register these. If you're overseas deployed right now, you're not able to get home and register this firearm. You're going to have to pay the $200 tax stamp after May the 31st to register that firearm. And the reality of it is you're violating federal law, even though you're overseas and you have no access to this firearm. It's locked up in your safe. When you get back, you're in violation of federal law because you have an unregistered SBR at that point locked up in your safe.
So that's where you have a friend go by and take that brace off.
Yeah.
But you had the 120 days.
You've got the 120-day rule, which starts today and ends on May the 31st. You just need to do whatever you can to be able to get those registered if that's your plan, or remove the butt stock so you stay within compliance of the law at this point.
Now, there was a question about the 88 days.
Right.
If you haven't been approved within 88 days, they return the form denied. But they addressed that.
They addressed it. Not
perfectly clear, but they did address it.
They said that it was something that they were looking into, that there was some confusion about it, about things being returned. One moment, let me kill this thing. I came in with my hair on fire, running a little bit late, and didn't turn my phone off. There we go. Okay, much better. But anyway, so they said that that they were addressing that with the 88-day rule with the FBI. They were addressing that, and we're going to be putting out more guidance on that in the upcoming future. But they really didn't give a whole lot of detail about what was going on with that, why stuff. And from my understanding was if you have applied for a Form 1 and you went into a review status, then at that point, if it goes past 88 days, they were declining it. If the FBI hadn't reviewed it in 88 days, they were declining it and sending it back declined. So they're supposed to be addressing that, and more information is supposed to be coming out about that.
But one of the agents did come up and say that they were working on getting that fixed.
Right.
So they really understand the issue. I don't think that there is some leeway there, but again, it's just gray.
Yep.
And so until they do it. Of course, the one thing, and I think we talked about this right at first, but it was maybe when their mics weren't working. But if you have a pistol that's been imported, that's one of the things that a lot of stuff went on. And I was kind of questioning this already with 922R. You have a CZ Scorpion, and it's it was manufactured overseas. And then when you start to add parts to it, does it knock it out of 922R compliance? From what they said, it doesn't.
Right.
So we'll have to get more clarification. But one of the things they said, the ATF said, was there's a lot of misinformation out there being spread around.
Yep.
And so, but we all know that we don't necessarily, we trust, our trust factor is about like that when it comes to this.
One of the interesting things was, so like with the Mossberg shockwaves, tons of Mossberg shockwaves out there that have arm braces on them. All of those are now considered an SBS, or short-barreled shotgun, which falls under the NFA registry, just like your pistols fall under SBRs. The shotguns are falling under SBSs. They addressed that, but they did not address whether you could register those or not register those.
Yeah, they said they're still working on it.
Right.
Now, that means, though, that if you do not have a brace, you're fine.
Yep.
So there's no, all of a sudden you have, whether it's a bird head grip or not, it's legal.
But at this point, if you have a shotgun that has a brace on it, to remain in compliance with the law, I would remove that brace from your shotgun until further clarification comes out about that.
Right. Okay, let's go to some questions, and if we have some, I know that there's if we can answer them.
Yep.
We've kind of thrown this at you really quick. But
we just vomited a whole bunch of information.
Right. Well, there's a lot of information.
Yeah.
So you're going to have to talk loud.
Christopher O'Rourke says, how does this affect the braces like the MCK?
So this ruling right now affects 100% of the braces that are out there. And if you go back and watch the webinar that I posted live earlier, it goes through all of the different braces. And basically what they're talking about is anything that increases the surface area on the rear of the rifle to give a larger contact patch for shouldering that firearm is considered a brace. And that basically covers 100% of all braces that are out there that are available today.
Satchmo Sanzabar asks, what about the whole all background checks are marked failed if they are in the system for X amount of days?
Yeah, that's what we were just talking about with the 88-day rule. They talked about that briefly during their webinar this morning. That was something they were working on with the ATF to resolve that, and they're supposed to be putting out more guidance about that in the upcoming days.
One of the things, though, they said they just didn't know how many Form 1s were going to come in.
Right.
So they said we don't really have an answer because we just don't know the volume.
Carl S. asked, real question, if I have an AR pistol, no brace, and it was filed out the way when I bought it, should it not have to be registered?
No, that's correct. If it does not have a brace on it, it is considered a pistol. And the buffer tube is part of the integral operation of that firearm. So the buffer tube can stay on it. If it's got a pistol buffer tube, rifle buffer tube, 6-position buffer tube, it doesn't matter, as long as it is just the buffer tube. Now, you can't add any kind of wrap around it or snubber on the back or anything that's going to increase the rear surface area or increase the ability to be able to shoulder and fire that weapon from your shoulder. But as long as you leave it with just the buffer tube, it's perfectly legal.
Van Zeppelin asks, what about the CMMG 22 long rifle conversion?
Anything that has a brace on it is going to fall under the SBR rule. And you're going to either have to remove the brace or you're going to have to register it.
Yeah, it's across the board.
Yep.
There are at one time, because of that funky list and the number system they put out there, that's the one thing we were doing. We have some smaller, like the flux brace.
Yeah.
The flux brace on the that one on the Glock. And that's and it's a small pistol and it's still small and the weight is light. But at this point, all braces, it's just like, let's just go across the board.
Yeah. Any of your Roni kits that your Glock goes in, that was one that they addressed specifically. If you've got a brace that a Glock goes in or any other type of firearm goes in, you don't register the housing itself. You register the individual pistol that's going to go into that housing. So if you've got a flux brace, you're going to register that Glock 17 that's going into that flux brace. If you've got a Roni, you're registering the Glock that goes into that Roni kit and not the kit itself.
Now, one thing, and I'm going to segue a second, but hold on, sis. We're going to take some more questions. One thing is that if you have an AR-15 lower, that's considered the rifle. But when you register it on your Form 1, you need to put the caliber. But it does give you options to put other calibers. So let's say that you have 4 AR pistols, but you don't want to register all 4 of them. You can register one lower receiver, and then you put the calibers of different uppers on there.
You've got a set of blocks that you put your barrel length, your overall length, and the caliber, and you're going to put whatever caliber that firearm configuration is in at that point in that block. And then there's another box for comments, and you're going to list all the other calibers that you have that are available for that firearm as well.
Can you have different barrel lengths, though?
You can have different barrel lengths. You can have different calibers, different top ends, different uppers. All of that will be registered. And you can do it now, or you can do it down the road. If you decide a year from now you want to buy a different lower or a different upper that you want to put on your registered SBR lower, you can do that. And it's considered a temporary change, because as long as you maintain that original upper, adding an additional upper or different types of uppers, different caliber uppers, are just a temporary change.
Matthew Dropko asked, coming in late, I watched on Guns and Gadget that reflex sights are okay for pistols. What I'm wondering is if the Holosun HS 510C open reflex sight is fine.
We'll go ahead.
Yep. So any red dot style sight is perfectly fine on your pistol. Doesn't change it into an SBR just because you've got a red dot on it. What does or can make it an SBR is if you have a magnified optic. So if you've got your red dot, you've got a 3x magnifier on it, that can be considered a SBR. If you've got a rifle with a standard 1x6 variable power optic on it, that can be considered an SBR. If you've got night vision on it, if you've got a thermal on it, basically any type of magnification on your scope that has a fixed eye relief of their definition was a fixed eye relief of 3 to 4 inches is going to be considered an SBR.
I mean, if you think about it this way, if you take a rifle and you point it out, where it sits, how you set your eye to it. If it doesn't have a stock to it, you're not going to be putting it up to your shoulder. And that's really kind of the thing. And no magnifiers to go behind. EOTechs, I mean, you can even put an EOTech on it.
Sure.
With zero anything with infinite infinite visibility or eye relief can be used. But it's just like this. If you have a long eye relief scope, you could probably put that on the pistol, because be able to use it
because it's designed for a handgun.
Right. Just like you would on a hunting revolver.
That's right.
After stroke, ask, what about selling it after it's on a Form 4? Who would buy it and now it's not marked?
So once it's registered on a Form 1, if you sell it, you'll have to sell it as a Form 4. It's going to have to be a tax stamped item. It'll be a $200 stamp paid by whoever's buying it. And I agree with you. That is a very good question. If it's not engraved as being an SBR or marked as being such, how do you really know?
Bruce and Pews ask, don't you have to give dimensions for your SBR? Does putting a stock on it change the length if they are not exactly the same?
Yeah, it can change the length. And it's, that's one of those things that is kind of subjective. You put a brace on it, you collapse the brace all the way down, maybe it's 27 inches, you put a stock on it and it's 26.5 inches. But because when you normally build one, you're building it based on a estimated length and not an actual length, because if you build it before you register it, it's illegal. So you're building based off of an estimated length and not an actual length.
Geraldo Arnaldo asks, what is the origin of necessity for making distinctions between long and short firearms, i.e. defining one or the other with respect to use for militia purpose as in the Constitution?
Well, it's all against the Constitution. It's all against our Second Amendment, the restrictions that they're placing on here. But the thing is, it's the law, and it has to be separated in the Supreme Court. If and that's the thing. Are we willing to get this straightened out? But the fact is we've been dealing with SBRs now
since 1934.
Right, 1934. And that had a lot to do with gangland shootings and a lot of the mob and a lot of the stuff that was going on. And so that's where that came out. At one point, they were talking about banning handguns altogether during that period. And really, they felt like that SBRs was more of a compromise. So really, to me, honestly, SBRs, it's ridiculous. I mean, yes, it's a short barreled rifle, but so what? It's just I've got a pistol. And like Sarah Mack said earlier, when we were in there, she goes, okay, so they're going to stop pistol braces, but then they're going to make these firearms even smaller. So you're talking about concealing something, you can take a little, like a Cobra, Mac 10, you can hide that. So, it's not a matter of making sense. Let's just be honest. It's a matter about control. But the fact is right now, and what our goal is here is that we make sure that we are in compliance with the law. And so
you guys understand what the law is, what the ramifications are for not following the rule of law. We saw the same thing with the bump stocks a few years ago. It's ran its course through the Supreme Court or through some of the appeals courts, and has been overturned in the appeals court. I'm sure there's still more litigation concerning that. And we're going to see the same thing with the arm braces. There's going to be litigation filed. There's going to be court cases that are going to be heard. And there's a good chance this one will go all the way to the Supreme Court for a ruling, but it's going to take time.
So with that being said, I mean, my recommendation is, unless you're going to register your firearm, take your brace, separate it, maybe put it in a separate location, at least out of your house. You can put it at another place, But the fact is this could be overturned. And so if it is overturned, then, you're going to have to go back and spend, a couple of $100s on those braces. They're not cheap, especially some of the really good ones.
Yep.
And so it just gives you, but you can also take that brace and put it right on a rifle if you want to.
That's right.
I don't know why you would, but you can.
And on the flip side of that, if you do own a bunch of pistols and you want to take advantage of being able to register those pistols without having to pay a $200 tax stamp for each one, it's a good opportunity now that you can register them as an SBR, not have to pay the $200 tax stamp, and put whatever kind of buttstock you want on it.
Right. Now, there was some talk with the ATF, and this is really just as if, they don't really have a way of knowing it necessarily, but if you go and buy a lower and you put all that stuff together now that the period has started, that's actually illegal.
Correct.
It has to be something that's already in your possession. So if you run out today and grab go to the local gun shop and buy, an SBR, a pistol with a brace on it, you are not under the grace period. So just put that for what it's worth. Let's see. Okay. Now I was actually going to talk about optics because I think that's an important part. But, one of the things they showed, now this is one thing, disabled people, they're going to they're going to have to go through a Form 1.
That's right. Yeah. There's no kind of waiver or anything for anyone that's disabled that's using a brace whatsoever. They fall under the same rule of law as everyone else. They'll have to register it or remove it.
Right. Now, one of the first diagrams that they were showing on the pistol brace was the one that they originally approved, and it was an AR pistol, and the brace was it was one of those SIG arm braces, and it was right behind right there on the receiver tube, and so it was like really close. There was no real way to shoulder it. At one time, and hopefully this can be overturned, but honestly, going through a lot of stuff that these guys were talking about, they're pretty concise now. They've kind of gotten it more focused. I mean, there's a lot of gray, but they've gotten a lot of it more focused. And I was listening to Armed Attorneys. Those guys are great. If you never watched Armed Attorneys, and they're out of Texas, but they were going through a lot of this stuff. And one of the things they said is as an attorney and as in a large firm of Second Amendment attorneys, they said, we've really looked this over. And we're really doubtful that something is going to be able to be changed with this. So they've got some really strong points here. A lot of it has to do with, the way it's marketed and things that have gone on. But we are definitely hoping that something can turn. So I will say, don't destroy your braces. Don't go out. You can sell them. You can sell them if you want to. And if somebody wants to buy them, and they can have them. But until this is overturned or it's not, it's just one of those things we're just gonna have to wait and see. I think it was like you said, just like with the bump stop thing, bump stocks. I mean, it's just this court back, and even now, is it really legal? I mean, they've made these rulings, but we don't know. So,
that's one of the biggest concerns that I have is there really hasn't been anything in the mainstream media about this. So there's an estimated 10 to 40 million braces that are in circulation in the United States right now today. That's 10 to 40 million people that could potentially be felons in the next couple of months because they've never heard about this or never been notified about this by the ATF.
Right.
And that's the biggest concern that I have is that there's nothing been put out other than to dealers to push this. And there's a lot of guys out there that own guns that don't visit gun shops on the regular. They don't watch stuff on YouTube about firearms. They see a cool gun. They're like, oh, I'm going to buy that. And they buy it. They put it up. Maybe they've never even shot it. I've got friends like that have them they just sit in their safe. They never shoot them. But, as of right now, they're in violation of the federal law that has just been changed and have no idea that they're now a criminal because of something that they legally purchased several years ago.
And that's a very important point because, guys, if you have friends that have these type firearms, you need to inform them. You need to inform as many people as you can. And to me, it's one of the most important things, which I haven't really put this together, while staying in the know with gun rights organizations, whether it's GOA, Second Amendment Foundation, NRA, whoever, even local, is to get involved so you can make sure that you are in compliance with the law. Or let me just say this, compliance with these regulations. And again,
it's not a law.
That's the one thing. These rulings, guys, it's a ruling and it's an interpretation. And the fact is a lot of these organizations or these agencies, are using their executive power to create law. All therefore is to enforce law. Congress makes the law, the executive branch executes the law, and then the judicial decides if it is in line with the Constitution. And so, there may be something that turns on this,
Yep.
and it could be great. And there's a lot of activity, but I don't know that there's enough support. I know that there is some bills right now in the House that are coming to even to end the NFA altogether.
Right.
Which honestly, I don't see that happening.
No.
Not with full automatic machine guns and all that kind of stuff, but with the general public. But I mean, it'd be beautiful. It would be beautiful. But just to be a realist, I don't see that. Maybe SBRs, suppressors, and then but we just got to continue to fight and continue to stand firm as much as we can. But guys, the one thing about it is, and the reason why we really want to do this is because we don't want you to be the test dummy.
Mm-hmm.
You may get caught with something. You're going, well, it's my Second Amendment right. I'll do what I want. And I go, okay, whatever. Tell that to the judge. And then after about 25 appeals, you're just in a big, you're financially ruined.
Yeah.
But we still should stand up and do everything we can to stand against it. And so I'll tell you guys, GOA immediately had a lawsuit going. Second Amendment Foundation, boom, lawsuits. Firearms Policy Coalition, the NRA, everybody was popping in lawsuits. So they need our support, and you have to decide, who you want to get behind. But it's very important to keep these things going and to make sure that we keep it in the forefront. You're right. Fox News, nobody. There's nothing about these braces anywhere.
I haven't seen any of this on any mainstream media whatsoever.
And that's wrong. That is just absolutely wrong. Okay, let's go to a few more questions if we have them, and then we're going to wrap it up unless there's something else. Was there something else that we needed to cover?
I think that's pretty much all of it.
Again, guys, go to the webinar. And honestly, it was an hour and a half. I sat there and I watched the entire thing.
Mm-hmm.
It was very interesting.
Oil the Gun Smooth asked, if I put a brace on a Ruger Charger, would that be considered an SBR by the ATF?
Yes. Yeah, any pistol brace on
brace.
any pistol is considered an SBR at this point.
W. Bond also asked, what about shotguns? Does this crap apply for other than rifles?
Yes.
Yes.
It does. And they were actually talking about the Mossberg Shockwave this morning, and they didn't give guidance on being able to register that either because it was never approved as a firearm to be able to be sold with a brace. So I don't know if you've got like a Shockwave or one of the other shotguns with a brace on it. Right now, I don't know if you're even going to be able to register that under the amnesty period as a pistol or SBR and still be able to do that.
You need to remove it.
For sure. Absolutely.
Meal Serp Rifles asked, can you possess a pistol upper if you don't have a registered SBR?
Well, I mean,
sure.
Yeah, because I mean, here's the thing. When you buy, if you buy a lower and you put it together, or if you buy a lower that's a pistol, because you can buy them as other, which is just a stripped lower. It's neither rifle or pistol. Whatever you make it into, though, that's what it becomes. So but you cannot take a rifle and make it into a pistol, but you can take a pistol and make it into a rifle. So let's say you have an AR pistol and you're like, okay, this is a bunch of bull. I don't want to go through all that. I'm just going to put a 16-inch barrel and stock on it. You can do that. Perfectly legal. Go for it.
Yep.
If you have an AR-15 rifle with a 16-inch barrel, you cannot make that into a pistol. And so, but the lowers are kind of in between. I don't know if that answered that guy's question because I got into that. Sorry.
Brutus Galactus asked, what about a Jackal? Can I leave the Picatinny on the receiver?
I think it's part of the receiver. Because see, I've got one. I've got a Jackal, and it is something to think about.
Yeah, from my understanding, what they were talking about this morning is you can't add any kind of accessory that's going to give you the ability to be able to shoulder it. So with the Picatinny rail on the back of it, because it is right on the back of the receiver, that doesn't give you the ability to be able to shoulder fire that firearm. So you should be good with that.
Rich B asked, can you add a 16-inch barrel to an NMP Smith & Wesson 22 pistol with brace?
Yes.
Angry Trooper asked, question, can I store the brace in another room and have it? Is it okay as long as it's not stored in the same room, or can I put it in my garage?
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Now,
nothing illegal about owning the brace.
Now, but the one thing they did clarify
Yep.
was that if you had one pistol
Mhm.
and you had the brace and you had them close, and how close is close, but that is okay. You've only got 1 and 1. The one big thing about the brace is because you can put it on a rifle, it kind of negates the legality of possession. So, again, if you have 1 and 1, I would take that brace and put it somewhere for sure, somewhere outside. But you're perfectly legal to own the brace.
Delta Dan 75 asks, what about the Shockwave with the original Shockwave grip?
As long as it's just the bird's head grip, you're good to go. If what we're talking about and what the ATF is concerned about with this ruling is any type of brace, pistol braces. So the pistol brace that allows you the ability to be able to shoulder that firearm is making it a SBR or an SBS. The bird's head grip, that's just hand fired like a regular handgun. No issue at all with that.
What if you put a standard grip on it?
Should still be fine.
Okay.
I'm guessing. I'd have to do a little research on that because that's considered a firearm and not a shotgun because the barrel is less than 18 inches.
But I've always wondered about it because all of them come with the bird's head.
Right.
None of them come like the old Cruiser, the Mossberg Cruiser.
Yep.
So anyway,
it's interesting. I'll have to look into that.
Okay, we're going to go ahead and sign off, guys. I hope that you've found a lot of answers here, but there is a lot going on here on YouTube, so there's a lot of different information that's going on. I would look though at information about this that's coming after the webinar and not before, because again, one of the things the ATF said is man, there's a lot of misinformation that's being pumped out, and so now that the ruling has dropped and it's actually become law, but this is enforceable, guys. So just be careful out there. But the big thing is, guys, if you have one and you're not planning to register it, just take the freaking brace off and put it over on another table, and you should be good to go in the meantime.
Yep. And if you're interested in watching the webinar, I live streamed it earlier today. There's a link to it down in the description. You can watch the entire live webinar from the ATF and go through the comments and stuff with that as well.
Yeah, and it's very good. It's a very good seminar, and they do answer a lot of questions from and which I thought was really good.
Yep.
Definitely, there are some gray areas, so you just don't want to be too crazy about it. But anyway, we really do appreciate Robbie for being here. And again, Robbie Wheaton YouTube channel, and that webinar is there. But he also does a lot of cool gun reviews and been a gunsmith for over 20 years, and also check out Wheaton Arms. And we really appreciate Sarah Mack for getting all the questions to us. And guys, we appreciate you guys for being here. I know we're kind of in that kind of in-between time right now. And I think some of these answers have actually helped me some to kind of go, okay, now I know what to do.
Right.
And I think that's the big thing. But guys, don't run out. If you haven't filled out that form, if you haven't submitted the Form 1, if you haven't, do not go to the range with that brace on your firearm. Don't go anywhere with it. In fact, go ahead and you got 120 days, but you have 120 days to submit. You do not have 120 days now just to go out and use it.
Right.
The only way you can use it is if you've submitted the forms. So tough times, but we're going to get through them. And guys, again, there are a lot of lawsuits that are going on right now. We'll see how this pans out. Again, get behind your gun rights organizations and let's fight for our rights. Because to be honest with you, any of these gun laws are against our rights as firearm owners and defenders. So be strong, be of good courage. God bless America. Long live the Republic.